What's up, Hub Watchers, YouTube subscribers, Twitter and Instagram followers? It's your boy Noname back at it again with another NFL Primer video. For those of you that don't know, this is going to be a short series I'm doing where I'm ranking positions in the NFL, starting off with the offensive side. I'm working through it right now before I get on to the defensive side. Initially, I had only planned to do it up until the Giants training camp began again, but then I thought to myself that makes no sense, might as well just continue it until the NFL season gets here. Of course, there's more than enough positions to do it. Today we're going to be talking wide receivers, top 5 wide receivers in the NFL who I think are personally those top echelon players. There's certainly going to be a couple people on this list that you disagree with. There's going to be people that you had hoped to see here. I kind of have a little bit of an honorable mentions thing at the very beginning. All in all, just, any type of opinions you have, I welcome them. Just put them down in the comments below. Make sure it's nice, clean. Everybody's respectful with each other and all that. Before I start off with the list, I'd just like to say, next up, I'll be doing tight ends and then quarterbacks. I'm still not sure if I will be doing offensive line, any type of offensive line ranking. But as of right now, it's going to be tight ends, quarterbacks, and then I'm starting off on the defensive side. So without any further ado, let's get into it with the honorable mentions first. I like to do this first. I don't think it makes sense to do it at the end. But honorable mentions, guys, you're not going to see on this list include Keenan Allen, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Evans, and most notably, Antonio Brown. These guys were all players that I thought of while making this list, and I certainly could have done a top 10 players, but then that video would have been a bit long. But these are all great players. They are all integral parts of their teams. They're all hard workers. They're all absolutely great at their position with great talent and great gifts. But they didn't make the cut because I simply think that these five players I have on here are better. And you would ask, why not have Antonio Brown on here? He is what some people consider the best wide receiver of the past decade. And I would agree with you, but with the rise of his fellow teammate Juju Smith-Schuster, and obviously all that drama that was going on, it kind of brings into question, as it did with Le'Veon Bell, how much of their production was on their own and how much was it of the Steelers system. We saw James Conner came in and he performed not on the Le'Veon Bell type level, but he performed pretty admirably. And when Juju Smith-Schuster came in, he immediately made an impact. And we all know the Steelers are known for their basically grooming wide receivers. That's not to say he's bad at all. I just think that these 5 guys, I think they're like said their own. Brown has it's not like he's regressed or anything like that. In fact, I'm amazed that he keeps up his production with his age. He does have Big Ben thrown at him, and Big Ben consistently throws for over 4,000 yards and whatnot. But let me not get into that. Actually, Brown was who I was originally going to have at this number 5 spot, but instead I decided to give it to Odell Beckham Jr. And you could tell me there's a little bit of bias in here because he is a former Giant, but to that I would say I think Odell is the most talented wide receiver in the history of the NFL, and is like by far the talent this guy has. If you were to rank a list just based on potential and based on like unnatural skill that he has, he would be number 1. He makes catches that I believe nobody else in the NFL can make, and it's not as though he's the fastest wide receiver. There's a guy on this list that certainly proves him wrong with the fastest. He's not the strongest, he's not the tallest. There's not something that he's the best at except for being extremely talented, and it's unfortunate that I have him here at number 5. But I have him here at 5 because of his injuries. Truth be told, he probably should be around 3 or 2. But his injuries have simply shortened his career and cut short a lot of games out of his life. In the past 2 years alone, he's been injured twice. In 2017, he was knocked out for basically the entire season. Didn't play much. In this past 2018 season, he did come back, but there was a little bit of something missing from him. He wasn't performing the same. He put up admirable numbers considering that he missed the last 4 or 5 games. Like 77 receptions for 1,052 yards with 6 touchdowns is not anything to to sniff at. And he had 2 passing touchdowns too. But his injuries, he's certainly at this point now labeled as injury prone, and of course there's a question of whether or not he could actually cooperate with his fellow receivers and fellow players in the locker room. So that's something that goes into it also, is how is he a detriment to the team and whatnot. There's always questions about that. But I still think he deserves a spot on here because he's still a top 5 wide receiver through his talent and production. He always produces when given a chance. I just hope that he could get rid of this injury bug, and when he plays for Cleveland, I wish him nothing but the best without any injuries and whatnot. Certainly for the Giants, he did the best he could for a long time, or I guess you could say for like the first 3-4 years he was there. He was basically the only source of offense we had. So it speaks to just how he is as a receiver, the fact that he was our main source of offensive talent and whatnot. Now, next up on the list, we have from the Kansas City Chiefs, Tyreek Hill. This is some guy that just a couple years ago nobody ever heard of. Since he came into the league, earned himself the name of the Cheetah. He is the fastest NFL wide receiver out there, and his speed has done him tremendous things for him since he came in. Of course, it helps that he's under offensive genius Andy Reid, and now he has the MVP as his quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. But Tyreek Hill is really amazing because of that speed and because of his size. He's the prototypical speedy wide receiver. He stands at 5'10", only 185, but somehow always manages to get at least 1,000 yards a season. This past season, he posted up 1,479 yards off of 87 receptions with 12 touchdowns, and he was averaging 17 yards per reception. That's mostly because of the speed he has. I'm going to throw in a little bit of highlights there. Whenever he catches the ball, he's always a threat with yards after the catch because of his quickness, which is different from his speed. His quickness, how fast he could change the speed that he's going at, how fast he could change the velocity that he's running at. His quickness is also amazing. He gets down the field extremely quick, which is why he's averaging 17 yards per reception, because he's an extremely dangerous deep threat. Even on the special teams, on punt returner and kick returns, this guy is out there. He's something that defensive coordinators lose sleep over at night. Not to mention, just athletically, he's almost like a freak. He jumps really high, runs really fast, can juke out of 2 or more defenders like we've seen it happen before. Tyreek Hill, since he came in, I think is the future of what NFL wide receivers are going to be. And now with Patrick Mahomes at his quarterback, he's just going to improve until Mahomes starts to decrease. But the reason I have him here at number 4 is because now in his, he's going to be going into his 4th year. Every year that he's been in the NFL now, he's proven himself as a reliable receiver, and he's proven that his speed can carry a team's offense. The reason I don't have him higher is because I already mentioned before, he has Andy Reid as a head coach who is known for his offensive prowess, but also before Kareem Hunt's allegations and whatnot, Kareem Hunt was a great running back, so he had the support there on offense, and Alex Smith was a game manager, but now he has Patrick Mahomes, who was arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So he has a lot of good pieces around him that helps to elevate his game. After all, wide receivers is probably one of the most dependent positions in football. So when you're on one of the best teams in football and you already have a lot of talent on you, it helps to propel you forward. Next up is Michael Thomas of the New Orleans Saints, and he is a incredible playmaker. Got him here at number 3, but also he has like an incredible body for a wide receiver, standing at 6'3", 203 pounds. This guy is all muscle. Like I said, incredible playmaker. It's very hard to take him down after he makes a catch and once he gets running. Now, Thomas, by my standards, had an incredible season this year also, just like Tyreek Hill. He had 1,405 yards of 125 receptions, 11.2 yards per reception, and 9 touchdowns. Now, I find it amazing because this was really the year, or well, some people even argue it was last year, where Michael Thomas sort of stepped up. There was a gap left there on the Saints after Brandon Cooks left them. Everybody was wondering who is Drew Brees going to throw to. He has no weapons anymore. Thomas stepped up last year, and then this year, he was once again challenged to take the lead on the wide receiver group. And he stepped up when Ted Ginn went down, who was the second target for the Saints. and he became a leader on that team. He became somebody that established himself as a threat and as one of the best receivers in the NFL this year. I mentioned how he's hard to cover because of the combination of his size and just quickness, just all over an incredible athlete. He has the completely ridiculous 82.9% catch rate, which is the best mark of any receiver in the entire NFL. And I find that crazy, given that he's the clear number one option on his own team. Not only would opposing teams have their best cornerback on him, but sometimes they'll be double teaming him and whatnot. He still manages to post this crazy stat. Another thing he led the NFL in was most receptions, 125 receptions. He's all around probably the most dangerous target Drew Brees has ever had. His Twitter handle certainly speaks for it too, man. I mean, can't guard Mike. It is relatively hard to guard him. I just have him up here as number 3. I think he will be the number 1 receiver by next year, or maybe even a couple of years if these other 2 guys in front of me are just either fall off or, stay where they are right now. Coming in at number 2 is somebody who I really thought about putting number 1 just because he's had the most consistent performance out of all wide receivers since entering the league, and he's been basically dominating since he's entering the league. At his age, he's still extremely dangerous. His big body, he uses his size and all that. I mean, this guy is absolutely incredible. A lot of people have him unanimously ranked as the number 1 receiver, and I have him number 2, Julio Jones of the Atlanta Falcons. He led the league in receiving yards per game 3 of the past 4 seasons. He had Matt Ryan at MVP level, and he played well. Now the season after, he had Calvin Ridley, who was coming up as a number 2, and he just, people were arguing that he can't score, but the receptions he was getting and the catches he was making, he's absolutely clutch, this guy Julio Jones. First of all, I mentioned the big body. He stands out at 6'3" through 220 pounds. 8 years of experience in the NFL, absolutely incredible. He used it to his advantage. 2018 stats, 1,677 yards, 113 receptions, averaging 14.8 yards per reception with 8 touchdowns. Now I'm pretty sure he leads the league in yards. Yeah, I just checked. He leads the league in receptions. And I remember one year there was a crazy stat about him where it was like every time the Falcons moved the chains through Julio Jones, 50% of his catches were first downs or something like that. Obviously, it's not something directly from last year, but it just speaks to the productivity and the reliability that Julio Jones brings to your team. He has certainly earned the number 1 spot on this list, but I don't have him there just yet. Not yet, right? There's a guy number 1 who I think is really special. But Jones, though, for his age, unlike other receivers who slipped in the advanced metric rankings, believe it or not, Brown actually. In fact, when you include the advanced metrics, Brown actually slipped down to 6, while Jones remains consistently within the top 3. In fact, this year he was at number 3. I mentioned his big body, insane to tackle, great with yards after catch. Now for the number 1 spot, I have somebody that's risen in a lot of person's eyes. He personally impressed me a lot this year and last year, and there's something about him that just gives him this number 1 spot. He completely earned it, even among the likes of the Julio Jones and Michael Thomases of the world, and that is DeAndre Hopkins of the Houston Texans. Now Hopkins, when you first look at him, you might think, what's so special, just say you're a casual football fan or something, standing at 6'1", 210 pounds. He's going to be going into his 7th year of his career and whatnot. This past season, he did have impressive stats, 1,572 yards off of 115 receptions, averaging 13.7 yards per receptions, and 11 touchdowns. It's not as though he's at the top of any of those stats right there, but he certainly performs well. It's not like he's a flashy receiver like Odell or Tyreek Hill, or just an incredibly strong and hard to guard receiver like Michael Thomas or Julio Jones. But what he is that he's the most dependent receiver in the league, and he has the safest hands of any receivers in the league. Pretty sure he did not drop a single ball that he attempted to catch the entire year. And his catch radius is absolutely ridiculous. Any ball that Deshaun Watson seemed to put up to this guy came down within his hands. And sometimes he runs after it, sometimes he runs with it after the catch. Other times he just comes down, makes a smart play, and that's like the main thing here. He's an incredibly smart receiver. Definitely one with the best route running in the entire league, and definitely the best hands in the entire league. He's currently in his prime, and he's finally has a great quarterback behind him in Deshaun Watson. Nothing but great things can come from this. Like, he's different from everybody else, and that's what makes him so good. A lot of the game today for wide receivers, like I said, is like with speed or somehow creating space between you and your opponent, and he doesn't necessarily do that. What he does do, though, is what I've said. He has the best hands in the NFL. He just catches balls that are thrown his way. He had 115 receptions, and that's off 159 targets. Absolutely amazing. I mentioned the catch radius. There was one catch I remember. It was definitely overthrown towards his left side. He just put his hand up there, bumped it in, cradled it, and got it down to his chest, rolled in for the touchdown from Deshaun Watson. It was ruled like the catch of the year or something like that. I think it was 2017. He's a sideline artist. Put anything up on the sideline, he'll get it for you. And he could be a vertical threat up the middle. Like, he's just the best all-rounder there is in the game. It really was a toss-up between Jones and Hopkins, but Hopkins is now just entering his prime, and he's great at everything. He has good speed. He has a good set of hands, the best set of hands. He has great route running, and he has a great catch radius. He's extremely reliable, will produce for you. Always had 1,000 or more yards in the past 4 out of the 5 past seasons. And one of the best things I like about him is that he's a silent leader. He leads by action. There's no drama on the sideline with him. There's no inside the locker room problems with him. He just goes out there, does his work, keeps his ears to the ground, keeps his head up and all that, So those are my top 5 receivers heading into this season. Let me know what you all think. I know it was certainly a toss-up there at the end with the top 2. Any comments you would like to share, put them down below. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let me know what you guys think. Did you think Antonio Brown should have made the list? Do you think Odell Beckham should have been on the list? There's certainly people out there who says because of his injury he should not be considered top 5 anymore. There's people out there who think Michael Thomas is the best receiver in the NFL over Jones and Hopkins. So let me know what you think down below. I'm out. You're